Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us here for the State of the Hill and all employee meeting. Now, our first in 2021. We have a exciting lineup here, lots of information to share. We appreciate people taking time out of their day to join us, both on campus and around the world. I am coming to you pseudo live from the dining room, from the Millhiser dining room. It's a virtual background. I think there's actually people in the dining room right now watching this, so you would know that already. But I thought that would be appropriate since that's where we normally broadcast from. I'd like to welcome our panelists. We have Kristen Spencer here, who's going to talk to you about vaccinations and some other health stuff. Heather Gelting is going to update on some employee benefits. Rick Wood is going to talk about some of our financial updates. And we're really honored to have Preston Athey, the chair of our Board of Trustees, joining us, class of 1967, who's going to fill you in a little bit on governance and leadership items as well. We're going to pause twice here, at least twice, to take questions. Once after Preston and I provide an update on the State of the Hill. We can have questions at any time, really. You can enter them into the Q&A box, or you can raise your hand if you're brave enough, and we'll unmute you and you can ask your question live. We can even unmute your video if you'd like. And then at the end, there'll be time for additional Q&A. And I know that all of our panelists are always open to follow-up questions. So that is the agenda today. I wanted to start first with a little bit of an update from the admissions cycle, which is we're just about 4 days away from closing the 2020-2021 admission cycle. February 1st is our deadline. Things are going pretty well. This first line of data gives you a sense of last year's admission cycle, which was a very strong year, especially considering the pandemic. You can see that in a normal year, or last year, we had about 1,100, between 1,100 and 1,200 applications. We did over 1,100 interviews. Our selectivity, that's the number of students that we accepted, was 29%. I think last year was the first year we dipped under 30% in a long time, which was exciting for us. And then we had a 49% yield. That means that of the students that we accepted, 49% of them chose us back. And that number has been hovering right around 50% the last few years, especially as we get into more competitive territory with our students. They have good, we're selecting some of the best students in the world, and they tend to have really good options. And so we try to win a few more than we lose. And so 49% was good, all things considered. Our attrition was a slightly bit higher than in normal years, just because we had some people who over the summer or in the spring, even due to COVID, decided to stay home. I will also note we have, I think, 20 or 21 students who accepted our offer originally to join us this year, and then due to COVID-19 deferred, but have stayed in the deferred category and are, at least at this point, intending to return to campus next year. So that's 20 students that we don't theoretically have to recruit new. We still have a few days left in the admission process. So these are numbers based on where we are today compared to last year on the same day. Right now we have 43% more inquiries. That's not necessarily a helpful number year to year. Those are just people that have clicked the button on our website or come to one of our events and ask questions about applying. We certainly want it to be up. It's better to be up than down, but 43% may not be a fully telling number. The next two numbers, though, are really helpful to look at. We have increased our interviews this year by 12% on a year-to-date comparison. One of the things, we're one of the very few schools in the country, boarding schools anyway, that has been having on-campus interviews. And we've done about 250 on-campus interviews and tours. And we've also done another 250 or so virtual tours. So we've given tours of some kind to over 500 students. And that's exceptional this year. And then this number is really maybe the most critical number for us to think about in the admission cycle, which is we have increased applications of 14%. So those are really good signs. It remains to be seen how some of these numbers above will work out in terms of selectivity and yield and attrition, but we're working very hard to make sure that we have a robust and strong admission cycle and very strong enrollment going into next year. And I think a lot of that has to do with all the work that all of us have done and everyone on the call has done to make this a successful year. Our admission team and our OSM team have been able to weave that story into our external outreach about providing a safe, healthy, and positive experience for our students on campus. And we've had, roughly speaking, 90% of our students on campus this fall for some portion of the fall term, and we operated 13 weeks of in-person learning, which is pretty unusual, I'd say, in the very top number of percentage of schools that are providing that type of experience for their students. Another way to look at the success of the school year to date is our fundraising support, and this generally comes from our alumni, from our trustees, and from our parents, and some other members of our community, employees included. Last year, we had our most successful fundraising year on record, which was buoyed by a $4.1 million Hill Fund and Parent Fund effort. That was up considerably. The prior year, I think it was about $3.5 or $3.6 million, so a substantial increase there. A lot of that was attributable to many of our parents who, in the spring, when they were offered a partial refund on their tuition because we went remote, in fact, just turned around and gave that money right back to the school as a sign of their support for the school's efforts. So that was, we're hopeful to recapture some of that this year as well, due to the goodwill that we've created. Our total fundraising, which includes not just the annual fund, but also our capital fundraising, our endowment fundraising, and even gifts from estates and wills, went over $20 million for the first time. So that was also a record for us. And our endowment actually dropped a little bit to 163 million. And there's some good reasons for that, which I'm not going to get into. It's bounced right back. I think Rick will share with you, but I think it's around 180 million, $182 million at this very moment, or at least yesterday. I haven't seen what the market's done today.
It's down.
It's okay. The fundraising results year to date, so this is just basically halfway through the year. These are numbers based on where we were at the close of the calendar year. It's pretty exceptional, actually. The Hill Fund and Parent Fund is already over $3 million, which is, compared to our goal of $3.5 million this year, or even compared to where we ended last year at 4.1 million, we're 80% plus to our goal, and we're tracking 19% ahead of where we were last year. So our alumni and our parents are responding, even in these difficult times, to the case for supporting our school and for continuing to promote excellence, both at the student level, programmatic level, as well as in our employees. So that's a real testament to the strength of the school. Total giving right now is just under $9 million. That's a little bit behind where we were last year. We haven't had as much success this year with our capital fundraising, and I think that can easily be attributed to two things. One is we haven't been able to welcome alumni and other donors to campus to see some of the projects we're working on. And second, after several years of very ambitious capital fundraising for the dining hall and the Quadrivium Center, we're taking a bit of a pause, or at least our donors are taking a bit of a pause from some of that capital fundraising. We do think that will ramp up in the second half of the fiscal year here. And I'm super excited to announce that since the beginning of our Strength of All campaign about 5 or 6 years ago, we've raised $117 million altogether, and that includes all categories of giving. And our original goal was $175 million. We ratcheted that down to about $110 million. And so we're ratcheting it back up as we continue in a campaign mode for the foreseeable future. So that's exciting. And I think all of you have seen some of the results and outcomes of that fundraising over the last 5 to 10 years. Looking ahead, just in terms of our program, I think most of you know that right now we're in this hibernation period. There's actually quite a bit going on. There's two things for our students that are going on. First and foremost is our H-term, which is a 6-week program, remote for most of our students. And they can either sign up for a class that is offered by one of our Hill employees or some alumni even, or they can sign up for their own independent project or internship or job or of the like that is advised or at least guided by a Hill faculty member. And this was not a required program for our students, but over 90% of our students signed up for the H-term. And from all reports, it's going quite well. I think especially the classes that we're offering, because they're unique and fun and interesting, and an opportunity for our faculty to share some new ideas and some of our staff to share some ideas. Those have been very well received. I think the independent projects, it's sort of a mixed bag right now. Some are amazing, and I think some have found it's harder to find an internship during the pandemic or do an independent project. The other thing that's happening right now, as I hope some of you have seen on campus, we have about 85 students on campus right now doing what we've called the low residency program for winter varsity athletes. We have 6 teams on campus. Our 2 basketball teams, our 2 ice hockey teams, our wrestling team, and our squash program. And they are in separated dorms by team. So we've been able to create a bit of a bubble there for each of those teams, almost like the NBA or the NHL. Hopefully we'll be as successful in that regard. Our students have been on campus now almost 2 weeks, and we're excited that we're going to be able to begin competition, I think as early as this weekend, with a few of our teams playing like-minded boarding schools who have have created a bit of a bubble and are doing a lot of testing, including testing before and after the competition themselves and wearing masks during the competition. So it certainly won't be as extensive of a season as our teams are used to in previous years, but we are hoping that the socio-emotional impact of being together, practicing, training, and getting a little bit of competition will be a positive experience for all of them. So we're not quite sure when that's going to end. Some teams will start returning home probably around February 13th. Some may stay through right through the spring term, depending on how it's going. And so that's a little bit complicated, but as my father would say, that's a high-class problem if we're able to pull it off. And then we launched the spring term. The spring term runs from March 1st to June 4th, with graduation being a week before June 4th. We're very deep right now in communicating the return to campus and planning for the repopulation of campus. As I think many of you have seen from our communications, our general expectation and hope is that all of our students, or as many of our students as possible, will be returning for the spring term. We had hoped to make that a requirement, but I think that was based on a little bit better COVID rates in the area and travel experience and that sort of thing. But I think we're going to see a very large number of our students back, certainly comparable to the fall, if not a little bit better. And one of the things that we're pushing very hard on right now is requiring our 6th formers to be back for their final term here. We really believe that the experience is much better for the students who would have been remote to be on campus. But what we've also learned is that the experience for the students who choose to be on campus is better if their classmates are here. And that's not just in terms of having a community experience, but also the classroom experience. The fewer hybrid classrooms that we have to support, the better for our students and for our teachers and for the overall learning environment. So we've spent a lot of time on this. Very few students have asked for exemptions or delays, and we've tried to streamline that as much as possible so it's not as disruptive as the fall, while also remaining flexible and providing what I think is good customer service to our students, because in the end, especially with our underperformers, we want them back next year, and we want them to continue to have as good of an experience as possible and know that the school is doing everything it can. So we're balancing those two things right now. On the drawing board, in terms of campus facilities, I'm assuming that those of you who've been around campus lately have seen some activity. There are a lot of small projects happening during these quieter winter months right now. Colin and Robin and their teams are blitzing the campus as much as they can, taking advantage of the low residency program right now. And in fact, doing some of the things that we normally have to do in a very short time window in the summer. So little things like flooring and lighting and electrical panels, painting, landscaping work where it's possible. And so that's happening all the time. Will continue to happen through the spring and the summer. There are two pretty major projects on the near horizon, I would say. The first is our new residence hall. You may have seen that we did finally take down the old classroom building up there on the soccer pitch. That went down in December. It's a very different view right now. And we are making way for a new residence hall, which you can see depicted here in these renderings. We recently received approval from the Borough of Pottstown to proceed with this project. We're finalizing our construction drawings. And right now we're focusing on the fundraising for this project. I would say we're roughly speaking about 35% through the fundraising for this project. So we still have a long way to go. And we're hopeful that within the next year or two that this project will begin. It's, as I mentioned before, we've done a lot of major projects on campus. And so helping our donor pools rejuvenate and get ready for a project of this nature takes a little bit of time and doing, and our team is doing a good job with that. This dorm will feature 4 separate houses or halls. And you can see here in the aerial view that it's sort of shaped like a U. There are 2 floors of dorm rooms, and there are 6 apartments attached to the dorm. And then the center building here, which you can see with the glass, that is a common room and a learning resource center. So by day, it'll be a place where our students who need extra academic support can go. And then in the evenings and weekends, it'll be a beautiful common room for all 4 of the halls to access. 48 students can be housed here. And because it's got 4 houses, we can adjust that. It can be all boys, it can be all girls, it can be a mix, it can be upper formers, lower formers, or all seniors. It really will depend on our needs at the time. And this is sort of the key that unlocks improvements to all of our residential facilities on campus. Wendell, Rolfe, Foster, Dutch Village, all need some major renovations. And so our hope is that we will be able to close each of those down for a period of time and use this new dorm as a place to shift those students for maybe a 6-month or 1-year period. That we will cycle through restoration of all of our residential life programs. So I would say the next 5 years is going to be all about dormitories and res life. And this is the key, the first domino to fall. The other thing that we've begun working on is a renovation of Meg's house, our admissions office. This is a building that's a bit outdated and needs both aesthetic improvements and structural improvements. We are just defining the scope of this work. These are really early renderings of what it might look like. And this is just a reception area. There's obviously offices on the 2nd and 3rd floor and other interview spaces on there and some infrastructure issues as well. So that's a project that's also in that 2-year horizon. We're hoping that one of our 50th reunion classes or other reunioning classes will take this on as their pet project. And it's certainly not as extensive as building a new dorm or the dining hall or anything like that, but it's critically important as the first impression. And as I shared before, our interviews are on the rise, the interest in the school is on the rise, and we want to make sure that we are providing a welcoming and warm experience for those students so that we can continue to bring great kids to the Hill. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Preston, who's going to talk a little bit about a few other things in our board.
Thank you, Zach. Well, welcome to all of you at the school
faculty and staff and others who are joining the call. The Board of Trustees had their January meeting this past weekend. Two of us, Jim Alexandre, the vice chair, and I were on campus. The rest of the group were via Zoom. I will say one thing for Zoom, we managed to get done in 3.5 hours, what often takes 2 full days in a normal board meeting. And that's the positive. The negative, of course, is that all of us really prefer to be there with the students and the faculty, having dinners and meeting people, going to classes and doing the other things that we often have a chance to do. And of course, with COVID, we could not do that. But in any event, we had a good meeting. Zach went through this material that you've seen today, and we went through all the financial material you will hear from Rick and other things, presentations on a couple of other major topics. I would say from the standpoint of the trustees, we're very pleased at how things are going at the Hill School. Number one, it's clear that the way the school has dealt with COVID, we get an A for how we've dealt with COVID. But what's even more clear, when we start surveying other schools, we get an A+ for how we've done against all the other private schools in the country, both day and boarding. In fact, of the top 40 boarding schools in the so-called ABOPS group, I dare say I don't think there's one that did a better job of both holding in-person classes and keeping the infection rate down to 2 people over 3 months and 4,700 tests. An absolutely amazing result, and a testament to all of you in the community who followed all the CDC guidelines and the guidelines that Dr. Spencer and her team put out, as well as all the ways in which you changed the schedule for both classes and when you started, wearing masks, 2 seatings in the dining hall, etc. It was a major effort. The trustees are totally aware of what you've done, are frankly amazed at what you have done. And more importantly now, you need to know that the rest of the country has noticed what you've done. And we are becoming the talk of the boarding school world because of our response to COVID. Because of that, all right, well, that's topic number one. Topic number two, we're all aware that in recent times, and particularly last spring, the whole question of diversity, equity, and inclusion was top of mind for institutions around the country, and the Hill School was certainly among them. The trustees about 3 or 4 years ago, I would say, became much more intentional about doing our bit to be sure that we were diverse in our makeup, and that we reflected the various constituencies of both students, alumni, and faculty that we would see at the school. These are the 3 most recently appointed trustees to the Board of Trustees. Some of you may know Tracy Steele. Tracy is an attorney in Montgomery County, was a parent. What was her daughter's name? I'm sorry.
Addie.
Addie. So those of you who knew Addie Steele, this is her mom. Tracy's a very impressive woman and a sharp mind, and she's going to add a lot to the board. And then we added 2 term trustees. Term trustees are those members who are of graduates of the most recent 15 years. And you see Max Zhang from China and Darnell Morrow from Washington, D.C. Max is the 2nd trustee we have representing Asia in this sense. And Judy Wong, a past parent, is a trustee. Max will be is our first Chinese alum and who is a trustee. Darnell is an attorney working in Washington. He brings a lot of good perspectives and was exactly the kind of person we wanted from the term group. So I think it's fair to say that this is one way in which the trustees are trying to reflect where the school is going and all the efforts that you all are making to be sure that we are an inclusive community, both in the student and the faculty ranks. The final thing I wanted to say, besides the fact that we're really happy with what's going on at Hill from the standpoint of the COVID, we're very happy with admissions. We're very happy with fundraising. We're very happy with the ways in which the campus has been spruced up and work has been done on all the major buildings. There's just a whole lot of things at the Hill that, from a charting standpoint, are up and to the right. And because of that, the board wanted to give credit not only to everyone on this call, but we also want to give credit to our leader. And in that response, the board has granted and negotiated and put into place a new 5-year contract for our headmaster, Zach Lehman, that will run now into 2025, actually. And because of that, we expect to have Zach around for a long time. He has made a commitment to the school, and we have made a commitment to him through this contract. I think it's fair to say that this is not totally usual in boarding schools to have a 5-year contract, but the man has earned it, and the trustees believe wholeheartedly in both the vision and the execution. So with that, I'll take a second and I will lead applause to our new headmaster's contract. And with that, Zach, I turn it back to you for the Q&A.
Oh, thanks, Preston. Thanks for that update. And I think we're all quite grateful to you for your leadership. Our community knows you well. You are not a stranger to campus. And we all know just how hard you work to make this a success. So I know that all of us are at home applauding your leadership, which is coming to a close at the end of June. At our June board meeting, our board chair will transfer from Preston to Jim Alexan. Preston will step off the board. He's officially retiring from the board, but I know he won't be far away. And the only difference is we're going to have to go visit him more often than him coming to us. So, which I look forward to. So thank you to Preston and to the board for their hard work. It really has been an exceptional team effort all the way around. With that, I do want to pause there for a second, excuse me, and take any Q&A from those on the call. We have about 115 people here. So if you have any questions about anything that I've referenced or that Preston has referenced, you can either type it in the Q&A or raise your hand. So we'll pause there for a second. Don't be bashful.
I saw one typed in question early in our presentation. Did you receive that?
Yeah, I see it. It's in the chat room. Yep. So the question is, do we have the number of interests from international applicants? So right now, I asked Tom Eccleston this question earlier today. We have seen about the same total number of international applications as in prior years. The number's pretty flat. So most of the growth that we're seeing that I shared earlier is from domestic students, both day and boarding students. I would say we're seeing a little bit more diversity in the geographic, both domestically and internationally, of where our students are applying from. Some of that has to do, I think, with the reduced barrier to applying. You don't have to come here anymore. You don't have to travel and do a campus tour. You can do that all online. So it may be a little bit easier for people to access our application process. In addition to that, I think that we're seeing a little bit of a decline from some of our traditional, some of our Asian countries with some of the travel limitations and restrictions that have been placed there. So it doesn't surprise me to see that there's a little bit of evening out there. However, in talking to other schools, we have seen that many schools are experiencing a significant drop-off in their international applicants. So I'm pleased that we've been able to hold the line there and at the same time increase our domestic students. And what, you know, we're always hopeful that we can have a good balance. In my time here at Hill, we've seen the number of international students, or the percentage of international students, go from about 12% to 20%, which is about where we'd like it to stop. We don't want it to be much higher than 20%. And we're always eager to diversify geographically and get kids with from all different countries and different perspectives and different backgrounds. And so I think that maybe that's one of the silver linings here of the COVID admissions environment, that we are seeing a growth in domestic applicants and a diversification in the geography of all of our applicants. And hopefully that will continue and not just be a one-year blip. Any other questions? I gave a long answer there to give you time to put a question in the Q&A box. Well, we'll come back to questions. If you think of them as we go, please don't hesitate to put them in the Q&A box, and we will answer them at the end. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rick.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to give you a brief summary of the draft operating budget for next year that will give you a sense of what our planning has been. With respect to enrollment and fees, you will see on the slide there that we are budgeting for an increase of 5 boarders and 2 day, for a total of 7 additional students. That's 526 students compared to 519 at the beginning of this year. The view there is that we've been able to successfully enroll that number of people in the past, that number of students in the past. And we also feel that our accommodations for COVID-19 have demonstrated that we can structure the campus safely. So that is the assumption on enrollment. With respect to tuition, the board approved a 4% increase in the boarding tuition and a 4% increase in the day tuition. You'll see the numbers right there. You also see that the rank of the boarding tuition in 2021, that's this year, was 24th. That's 24th highest out of 40. And day tuition is 29th. And the sensitivity point there, of course, is that we have to manage the ability of our families to pay to come to Hill. And we also have to charge an amount that allows us to provide a worthy student experience. And it's quite a balancing act. And so long as we are below the median of the industry, it seemed that we had the ability and that we could increase our tuition fees by 4% again this year, knowing full well that that trend cannot continue. We also increased financial aid. You don't see it on the page, but we increased the average financial aid award by 4%, going into next year. So for individual families, we have an increase in the financial aid. Preston mentioned the endowment, or Zach did at 163 at the end of June, and it has come back, and the current value as of the end of December was $185 million. So that's been a nice response by the market, and we don't know what will happen in the future, but it gives you a sense that the all-important strength of the school, as supported by the endowment, is showing strength in the current market. I wanted to give you a couple of other, highlights here that you can look at. Right now, on a benchmark basis, our net endowment per student, we're in the 44th percentile, and the scale reverses. 100 is the highest, 1 is the lowest. Total gifts per student, 87th percentile. That's a very strong performance. 42% of our students are on aid, and that's the 46th percentile. Our annual fund per student, 54th percentile. And you you see the rest, endowment draw, operating revenue per student 38, operating expense per student 38th percentile. And then we have a fairly large plant in terms of total square footage. It's in the 77th percentile. Just wrapping up, the challenge for this year was to be able to operate the school during COVID, to spend the money that we needed to make it a safe place. And for this year, that required significant investment, and we had a planned budget deficit of $1 million. With the changes that you just saw there, and with a plan to reduce some of the additional spending that we had this year for COVID-19, which included things like the modular units, which included things like almost a doubling of custodial services. By adjusting back to a more normal year, we've been able to project a budget surplus with depreciation funding of $1.65 million. So we've been able to swing from $1 million deficit to $1.65 million in terms of total funding for the facilities. And that's critical for us, as you know, so that we can continue to renew the campus that the school is on. So that concludes my comments. If you have any questions, we will be available later on. But I think, Zach, I'll turn it over to you and Kristen.
Thank you very much, Rick, and great report. Finances are really strong right now. Kristen, you want to go ahead and share your screen? Yay, you did it. Have to push that little button at the bottom right there to do full. There, that will do it too.
There we go.
Great.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's been a long year. We've really been fighting this pandemic for the better part of the year, but I want to share with you some thoughts about the light at the end of the tunnel that's coming with the vaccination. So I'm sure you're following the news. There are 2 currently available vaccinations under emergency use authorization through the FDA. Pfizer was the first to receive authorization, followed shortly thereafter by Moderna. They are similar, same class of vaccine. They're messenger RNA. They're a little bit different. They're a different molecule. They were studied under different clinical trial parameters. So the guidelines that determine distributing these to patients vary a little bit. And you can see that Pfizer is approved for age 16 and up, whereas Moderna is approved for 18 and up. So right now it's really just adults and older adolescents who are eligible to receive a vaccine. There are studies underway looking at younger kids and how can we prove safety and efficacy initially down to about age 12, and then the studies will continue before that. Both of these vaccines require 2 doses. There are some limitations on storage. Pfizer has the really strict storage parameters with that dry ice type ultra cold storage. So really that's best handled by health systems, and that's not something that most pharmacies or health departments are equipped to deal with. So by and large, the other locations are handling the Moderna vaccines. So messenger RNA vaccines, this is the first go at messenger RNA vaccines. It's not new technology, it's newer technology, but it's been under development since 2005. So there has been a lot of experience with this, really studying this, working on it for some other vaccines that never came to market because the need for them really dried up before completion of the vaccine. But all of that prep work really allowed the NIH and CDC to step in quickly and continue all that progress that has been in place for the last 15 years. So it uses small fragments of messenger RNA that codes for the spike protein in the virus, and that injected into the recipient causes the cells to produce antibodies against that spike protein to prevent the viral particles, once someone is exposed, from being taken up. So a couple of the big concerns out in the media over the last couple of months have been, gosh, can I get infected if I get the vaccine? Can I actually get COVID-19? This is not an infectious agent. This is just little bits of material that provide the genetic code to create the proteins. The other common question has been, does it alter DNA? This is a one-way process. So DNA codes RNA, which codes proteins. So the messenger RNA is that intermediate step that's introduced that causes that one-way process to develop the proteins, the antibodies, but it cannot get into the nucleus of the cell. It cannot alter the DNA. So it really is a safe mechanism to put forth in a vaccine. So on the horizon, there are obviously many more vaccine candidates. Johnson & Johnson is right behind these two. It looks like they're going to present data in about a week. It's an adenovirus vector. It's replication deficient, so it can't make you sick. It's been inactivated, but they actually use a known fairly benign virus to help cells uptake the vaccine. That is hopefully going to be a one-dose vaccination. That would be a big game changer in this process. However, Johnson & Johnson is currently doing a 2-dose trial as well. There's some thought that they may be able to get even a little bit better efficacy by adding a second dose. So we'll see what that final application for the EUA shows after their intermediate results. So Johnson & Johnson also is easier to storage, it's easier to manage, and that's going to be something that is so much more easily widely distributed across the US and across the world. The AstraZeneca has hit a couple roadblocks. It's similar. That is really being explored much more thoroughly overseas, but not actively in the US right now. This slide is out of date. I put this together on Sunday, 54 other vaccines in clinical trials. That's down to 52 now. You probably saw the headlines that Merck has dropped their 2 vaccine candidates, just seeing that they're not promising at this point. So the pros of vaccination, this is what's going to end the pandemic when we get enough people who are immune, whether that's through vaccination or natural infection. Obviously, vaccination is the way we want to achieve that without putting anyone through clinical illness to get there. It's free. The government is covering the cost of this for all individuals. It's 90 to 95% effective at preventing clinical illness. So the studies were done looking at, did the vaccine recipients then become ill? So at this point, they're still looking at, can you get infected? Can you carry the virus in an asymptomatic fashion? But 90 to 95% chance that you wouldn't get sick, that is a good odd that I'm willing to bet on. It's also been shown to be essentially 100% effective at preventing severe illness. So hopefully avoiding hospitalization, ICU care, some of those really concerning, really the complications that we've seen with a lot of patients. What are the cons? Really minimal in my mind. Yeah, you have to schedule an appointment. You have to go to the appointment. The mass vaccination site that Montgomery County has set up down in Bluebell at Montgomery County Community College is really, it's an impressive operation. They have stood this up very quickly. They're efficient. They're private. They're caring. It's really well done. So that's a real, not much of a concern on my end, just making the effort to get down there. There are some expected, I wouldn't even call them side effects, but symptoms that you can get after vaccine: sore arm, a little feverish, achy, the usual things that you might think about with flu, but that's not infection. That's actually what you want your body to do as it ramps up an immune response to the vaccine. One thing that's gotten a lot of attention is a very rare but present possibility of allergic reaction after the vaccine. Depending on what series of data you look at, it's somewhere between 2.5 to 11 cases per million. But this is really seen immediately within the first 15 minutes or so. It's treatable with epinephrine. Very rare, but because of that, public health is requiring that patients are observed for 15 minutes after administration of the vaccine. So that's easy. You sit and do your work or read a book or whatnot, and then you're free to go when all is well at 15 minutes. And this is currently pending full FDA approval. This is under emergency use authorization. Really, the only difference there is we don't have the longitudinal data yet, because weighing risk benefit, there's no way with the level of illness that's occurring in this country that they would sit on a vaccine which has been shown to be safe and efficacious long enough to wait and see that further long-term data. So challenges in the vaccine rollout, you've all seen the news and the frustration with, we thought this would be going much more quickly. It really is based on three things: supply of the vaccine, funding for the municipalities to set up their administration workflows, and then the actual manpower and setting up sites that are big enough to handle the volume of patients. So Montgomery County actually is really supply limited. The funding is adequate. The administration is very slick. They've been efficient and thorough with their planning, but they're just not getting the supply that they need to keep up with the demand. So with Pennsylvania's vaccine rollout plan, the state has prioritized based on the need. So phase 1A is healthcare workers, residents and workers in long-term care facilities such as nursing homes. And now the CDC has recommended that also be opened to individuals age 65 or those with underlying health conditions which put them at greater risk of severe complications. Phase 1B is going to be our teachers and all of those associated with working in the education field. And then phase 2 is the general public. So this is Montgomery County public health data. We have 20,000 healthcare workers. First 17,000 first doses have been received by the county for their site to date. With this addition of the individuals who are 65 and over or with underlying health conditions, that now adds another large segment of the population into those who are eligible now, ahead of the education workers. So that does back us up a little bit in the priority. This 17,000, that's the county's mass vaccination site. There's on the Montgomery County website, there is a nice dashboard you can follow, and considering partnering pharmacies as well. There are 35,000 individuals who have received their first dose in Montgomery County. So we are working on getting folks at Hill vaccinated according to the rules. We have 15 in health and wellness who have been vaccinated. We have 3 in security. We have a couple of other people on campus who have been able to start that process. I'm a big believer in prevention. COVID-19 is now a disease, it's a vaccine preventable disease. That's the hope of getting through this, moving past this, getting back to normal. So I just encourage everybody to take that opportunity when it's your turn. Don't cut in line, but definitely get in line. And as soon as it's your turn, please get vaccinated. And here's our own Steph Chaldenot with her Vaxi, her picture getting the vaccine, and just want to encourage you, this is our way out.
Thank you, Kristen. I will pause there before we launch into Heather's presentation. Are there any questions for Kristen as it relates to vaccine or any of the other health questions you might have about campus? I guess you were very thorough, Kristen. All right, moving right along. Heather, you want to go ahead and share your screen?
Okay, saving the best for last, want to talk about wellness a little bit. We're proud to be members of the Pays Boa Health Benefit Trust. And in this last plan year, we rolled over a 0% increase. And part of the reason for that is that the pandemic has limited some of our ability to get to the dentist and get to our wellness checks. And that's not necessarily a good thing. So we definitely want to encourage everybody to get out and get caught up with preventive services for medical, dental, and vision. The Paysboa Health Benefit Trust has recently put together a microsite in collaboration with Independence Blue Cross. And I'm going to jump into this site in just a minute to share with you some of the new resources that will help to focus on wellness for our population. One of the things that has been an acute need is mental health through the pandemic. And if this site doesn't look familiar to you, it's likely because you probably have not logged into your Independence Blue Cross portal. This is the view if you're logged in to see your benefits, your claims and spending. And there's a new drop-down menu now under benefits. I have it highlighted here for mental health and substance abuse disorders. If you go to that drop-down menu, there are additional resources to get help immediately if the need is dire, or to find access to counseling, psychologists, psychiatrists that can help in this area of health. So next I'm going to jump into the Health Benefits Trust microsite with Independence Blue Cross. But this graphic tries to highlight for you some programs that we offer, because we have 9,000 employees in the trust, that most other employers, frankly, are not able to offer to their membership. $200 reward program, a Livongo diabetes management program. Propeller is a COPD disease management and support system. So all of these that you see featured on this page are available to you. Part of our challenge is continually promoting these features and making sure you're aware of where to find these resources. So I'm going to change my share now. Give me just a second to get over to the website. If you go to Paysboa/IBC, this is the new website, and I'm going to bookmark this in lots of different places and include it in my biweekly benefits newsletter. In fact, it was included in yesterday's newsletter that went out. This is the main landing page, and this is just for our Paysboa group. So any of the medical plans that you see in the drop-down menu, these are the plans that are generally available to the group. Find a doctor feature. Most of us are familiar with that. If you need to find a specialist or a medical provider, there's the link. Under forms, if you have kids in college, you might need the guest membership form, medical claim forms, so on and so forth. I'm going to come back to well-being because that's where most of the good stuff is located. In Get Connected, you may choose to sign up for email or social media to follow Blue Cross so they can push out lots of good communications to us. And then in resources, this part is also very helpful. We have a dedicated customer service team. The customer service scores for those that call in are incredibly high. On hold is low. First time problem resolution is also very high. So this is the number. This is the same number that's printed on the back of your membership ID cards. In addition to having such a large group, Paysboa has negotiated with Blue Cross that we have 3 dedicated registered nurse health coaches. They specialize in disease management. You can call their direct lines if you have any questions about something that you're dealing with related to your health or a family member's health, and you need a little bit of advice, either about your own care or how the benefits could support you with your care. So looks like Barbara needs to get her photo in here, but this is just another great resource for us to have available to us. I'd like to show you the member flyers. These are, it's a very long list. I can export all of these and put them also into SharePoint for you. But if you look down the line, I commonly get questions about things like acupuncture. Here's the guest membership again, if you have kids away from in college. Livongo, that's that diabetes management program. Propeller is the asthma and COPD management program. Nutrition counseling. We have discounts and reimbursements, fitness reimbursements. In fact, let me go ahead and click on the fitness reimbursement. The fitness reimbursement has been now expanded in light of the pandemic to also include some virtual exercise classes. For example, those of you with Peloton monthly expenses, with all the Pelotons that have been ordered in the last year, you can get $150 back towards your Peloton membership for after documenting 120 workouts in the year. There's a form that you complete out, you document from the Peloton website, for example. There would be other websites, of course, or other online fitness, virtual fitness that participate. But it's a great program. Get that $150 back in your pocket in order to help you to pay for fitness. So that's a long list of different resources and flyers that are available to you. I hit all of these buttons and drop-down menus except for well-being. I'm going to go back to that one now. I've already mentioned Propeller and Livongo. I'm not going to click on either of these, but if one of those diseases is something that a family member might be challenged with, you'd want to look into that. They're free resources only available to the Health Benefits Trust members. So I'm clicking on this well-being tab. This has a lot of stuff. There are meditation, mindfulness, cooking demonstrations. In this virtual well-being program, there are just an endless number of resources to participate in either live demonstrations or download menus, participate in yoga, and additional resources that are available to all of us through the trust. So all of this is accessed through the microsite. The last couple of things that I want to mention, Achieve Wellbeing is this $200 benefit that you get by completing 5 simple activities. All you need to do is log into your Blue Cross portal, go to the Achieve Wellbeing site as you're logged in, complete a well-being profile, which is basically just a questionnaire about your own individual health. Go to your PCP once a year for your wellness visit, and then complete a well-being exercise. The last one that I did, it was, I think it was proper sleep habits. And you simply logged in a few days in a row to document that you were working to practice proper sleep habits. There's lots of little things like that are little healthy habit action steps. And then you have to complete 1 gender or age appropriate screening. And for those of you that are younger than 40 that might not have a lot of screenings, that could simply be getting your blood work once a year to check your blood. After you get these 5 things completed, you get to pick from a large number of gift card options totaling $200. So you could do 4 different $50 gift cards. I did the whole $200 at Home Goods because that's my favorite store to shop. And you can do it each year. So as of November 1 of each year, this well-being program restarts. And I'd love for more of our employees to be able to take advantage of this. And it's very, very easy to do. Some of you are interested in nutrition counseling and health coaching. There's options here, and they are free for you to participate in those programs. And here's some additional discounts. I already mentioned the reimbursement for fitness. Global Fit has discounts. We have several in our area. LA Fitness, Reality Pilates in Royersford, Retro Fitness in Oaks, and Only Results Fitness in Phoenixville. You can get a discount off of your membership through this global fit service. Blue 365 and Blue Insider, there are just lots of discounts on ski resorts. Sometime in the future when theaters are open again, theater discounts, lots of activities for you and your family. So that is what I wanted to share about the new microsite for wellness and well-being. And I'll turn it back to Zach to close our session.
Thanks, Heather. And Preston's still here. And so is Rick. And I assume Kristen's hiding there somewhere. Thank you so much, Heather, for such a detailed report. Needless to say, we're all in very capable hands in terms of benefits and other HR issues. So we're grateful for all your hard work. I know you're a member of the Pays Boa Trust and help, you're a leader in that field. So thank you. And I'll just mention, one of the things that I think is notable in a world where many employers have reduced benefits or frozen benefits, we have not. And not only have we not frozen them, but as you can see from Heather's presentation, there are even more than there were a year ago. And so a big thanks. And really, since Preston's still on the call, I want to thank him because it was the board's clear directive that we maintain a high level of benefits for our employees during this difficult time. So thank you to Preston for his leadership on that. So we do have one question, and there's time for more. Certainly no expectation of questions. You don't have to ask questions. But one question came in, which is for, I think actually for Kristen, but Heather may have something to say about this as well, which is when phase 1B does open, do we schedule our vaccine through our PCP or with the school?
We should be getting a block of appointments for the school as vaccine becomes available. And we'll be able to provide that link for employees to register. That won't be everybody all at once. My expectation is we'll work through our employee base block by block. So that said, if you have an opportunity through your primary care physician to access that before your opportunity through the school, then I would take advantage of that as well.
Great. And when that does happen, Kristen, will we all be going to Montgomery County Community College, or will there be other sites likely? And can you go to CVS and the like?
Right now, the plan is for the community college, but Montgomery County is working on alternate vaccination sites. They've been talking about Pottstown. There are pharmacy partnerships that they're establishing, so it may be possible in the next couple of weeks to months to use a local pharmacy as well. On the Montgomery County Office of Public Health website, there's a nice graphic about where the vaccination sites are in the county, and there are a lot of options outside of just that one mass site right now. So I think there's probably going to be opportunity for local option as well.
Okay.
I would just like to add, Zach, that I did email out a link last week for anyone that's over age 64 or might have health vulnerabilities as listed by the CDC. So if you could pre-register, then you would be more likely to get the vaccine on your own directly at the county health department instead of waiting for the school's block of appointments.
Great. There's a follow-up question here. Do we still believe that vaccinations for members of our community as educators are likely to occur in February?
I think that's awfully optimistic. It's a watch and wait as the supply is delivered. But Montgomery County, for example, this week ordered 15,000 doses. They were told they'd get 7,500 doses. They actually only got 4,000 doses. So that's where the supply issue is really the problem. So it's really a watch and wait. But with the number of folks who have just been put into 1A, I'm not optimistic that it will be in February.
Okay. Well, we will certainly tell people as soon as we know. We'll make sure that we're getting that information out right away. it's also worth noting that some of our students have begun getting vaccinated, both here in the US and abroad. And some students actually will be delaying their return in the spring so that they can stay for their second shot. And we do expect that that will continue to happen throughout the spring and summer, depending on where people live and their underlying conditions and the supply and availability to younger people. Any other questions? We've got Preston still here, and Rick and Heather. Any questions on benefits or finances or direction of the school? Okay. Here we go. Obviously, nothing is predictable in this environment, but do we foresee ourselves taking steps back with COVID restrictions, or will vaccines be a path forward to easing some of these restrictions? I'll take that question, and then Kristen, if you want to join, add anything. So, we have been very hopeful, and certainly this fall we were hopeful that we would be in a much better position in the spring than we were in the fall, and we in fact designed our entire calendar around that. I think we are hopeful that we'll still be in a better place come March, April, and into May, but we're being realistic at this point that the winter surge was about as bad as we predicted, and perhaps worse, and that the vaccinations are not rolling out as quickly as we had hoped once they were announced in, I think it was in late November, early December. So we've announced our expectations to the community sort of on a status quo or current scenario, but we also, like we did in the fall, if things progress, we will certainly look to reduce any restrictions we can and safely do. Certainly the vaccinations are going to be part of that for our adult community, which is more at risk than we think than our student community. The CDC released a report yesterday, I think it was, where basically they said that there's very little transmission among at schools, in school settings, for schools that are taking precautions. So we don't know how much we'll be able to reduce those restrictions this spring. And even we're still not 100% sure what the fall is going to look like. We do expect there's going to be some lingering impact depending on the amount of vaccination, depending on the mutation of the virus, and depending on our continued understanding of testing and how the virus is transmitted. But I can say we are getting much better as a school at containing the virus. We're learning a lot. We finally have some of the equipment that we didn't have in the early fall. Kristen can probably swing her camera around and show you her fancy device on her desk, which is a Cephia device. There it is. That device it's hospital quality, can provide 35-minute PCR testing, 4 tests at a time. And so that allows us to determine if someone who is symptomatic has COVID within under an hour. And that in the fall, that was taking us anywhere from 3 to 5, even 6 days at times. And that required us to not only isolate the symptomatic individual, but quarantine everyone that had close contact, which in some cases was 5, 10, 12 people, and a real inconvenience and a disruption to our community. So now we can rule COVID out, hopefully, or rule it in relatively quickly, and we have supplies for that. So we're excited about that. We've also just been given access to a less expensive antigen test called the Abbott Binax Now test, which was announced late summer, early fall. It's a $5 test, which is sort of a game changer. We've been spending anywhere from $35 to $100 on testing per test. And so with a $5 test available to us now, that also gives us the ability to do more than we were able to do in the past. We've got all of our tents coming back in the spring. Our dining hall staff has got it down to, they really know how to do this well now. Our community life program, in terms of all the quarantining and returning and travel, it's a much more fine-tuned operation. As Kristen liked to say this fall, we were really building the airplane as we were flying it. Now I think we're maybe sort of landing the airplane, or we're up in the air and we're maintaining altitude, and hopefully know a little bit more about what we're doing. So I just give a lot of credit to everyone and all of the resources that we've been able to bring to bear on this challenge. So we do hope, that was a long answer to a short question, but we hope to ease restrictions as soon as we can safely. And we're just keeping a close eye on when safety occurs. So Kristen, anything to add to that?
I'll just add that in the short term, we will have those who are vaccinated still participate in our testing, our screening tests, and still wear masks. That's the public health guidance as we learn more. So the data about the efficacy of the vaccine, that's based on 30 and 44,000 patient samples for those studies. Now we need to see what that looks like in real life. I'm optimistic it'll mirror that, but we do still have some baby steps to take as we move to the next phase.
Great. Well, we've taken a little over an hour, so I'm grateful for those of you who joined us today. Again, my thanks to our panelists and to Preston for joining us today and for all he does for the school. And honestly, my sincere thanks to all of you for everything that you've done under these challenging circumstances to make this such a successful year so far. So with that, I wish you all a great day, and we'll look forward to staying in touch. If you have any follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks, everybody.